Our next topic is how to appeal a bad appraisal. Hopefully this isn't something that comes up for you, but there is a step in a finance deal where after you've already had an accepted offer, you've gone through a home inspection, you've gotten to a purchase and sale, the only thing that's left is the buyer's financing. A part of that financing is the bank appraisal. So if the buyer is getting a loan and it's under 20% down payment to the loan value, then the buyer's bank is going to require that an appraiser go out and they're going to have to make sure that the house is worth what they've paid or higher. This is sort of a consequence of the banking regulations from the housing crash recently, where they thought that the appraiser's coziness with banks was part of the problem. So now they've made it even more difficult. In the way past, it used to be that the bank just hired the appraiser, they had a direct line of communication with them. If it was a $400 or $500 appraisal, then the appraiser got that amount of money to do the appraisal. Now, the bank has to hire an appraisal management company. That appraisal management company has to select an appraiser at random off of a list. So there's one other level of disconnection between the bank and the appraiser, and that's created two problems. Number one, now the appraiser might only be getting $200 or $300 out of that $400 for the appraisal, so they're making less money and they have less time to devote to the appraisal. Number two, if there's a bad appraiser or a bad appraisal, the bank has no consequence to it. They can't even talk to that appraiser. So it is incredibly important to prepare for an appraisal. So the way to do that, and this is amazing to me that most agents don't do this, is when you need to meet the appraiser at the appraisal and give them the information that they need. So when we have an appraisal, we meet the appraiser there, we give them a packet of information. We give them the purchase and sale, it's got the purchase price on it. We give them the floor plan, because they need to sketch a floor plan for us. We might have just saved them a half hour, 45 minutes of their valuable time. We give them information. So if we know there's a house that sold next door and it was a distressed sale and a lower price, we want to head that off. So you're going to give the appraiser the information that they need to properly appraise the house. If you get a bad appraisal and you've agreed to sell a property for $500,000, the appraiser says it's only worth $490, there's several things that you can do. The first thing that you're going to do as a seller is going to ask the buyer to pay more. The bank doesn't really care what the purchase price is, they only care of the ratio of their loan to the purchase price. So the buyer can decide to put down more down payment, and that fixes the problem. Our argument when we're in that situation is that's much less damaging to a seller than it is to a buyer. Because if a seller agrees to lower their price, which is what a lot of agents just reflexively suggest that they do, that's money that's gone out of the seller. The seller never sees that money again. If a buyer decides to put more down payment down, all they're really doing is they're trading a down payment for a lower price. So the money hasn't gone anywhere, it's just shifted for them. So that's the first thing that you do as a seller, is you insist that that buyer pay more. If they won't do that, then maybe you come to some sort of compromise. Hey, I'll come down $2,000, you come up $8,000. The next thing that you can do is you can ask the buyer to get an alternate financing. Because ultimately, even though appraisers like to beat their chests and say, we're the legal opinion of value, it is just an opinion. Okay? Really, the only thing that determines the value is an open market, which is what you had when you got your buyer. And you'd be amazed. I've held appraisals in my hand that are $50,000 or $100,000 apart on the same property done within days of each other. So ultimately, the last way that you could choose to fix it is you can ask the buyer to try and get additional financing from another lender who will then hire a different appraiser. And most of the time, that will fix the problem. As an absolute last case scenario, if it makes sense for you as the seller, you can decide to adjust your price. But unlike most agents where that's the first thing they're asking you to do, that should be the absolute last case resort. It's very likely to be fixed by another manner.